All right, we're going to talk about red meat. So a lot of us love red meat, right? But the media and the government kind of give us this impression that it's bad because it's high in cholesterol and saturated fat, and we should avoid it or minimize our intake. So I'm here to sort of dispel some of that stuff with real science stuff right here. Okay. So what's the deal with saturated fat and cardiovascular disease, right? So fat in general is not involved in the initiation of any sort of cardiovascular disease. It has to start with oxidation or breakdowns of the molecules called lipoproteins, which carry cholesterol. Once those start to break down, then fatty streaks can form, but that can be any fat, right? But saturated fat is not responsible for the initiation of that. And numerous studies fail to strongly implicate dietary saturated fat as more than a slight contributing factor. And that really it's likely due to other dietary shortcomings in the individual. So really, it starts with a high sugar diet, polyunsaturated fats. Inflammation in general is what starts heart disease. So saturated fat is really not involved at all. It has to start with free radicals and inflammation. So what is saturated fat good for? Actually, it's good for a lot of things, right? So it's needed for your bones to help absorb calcium. It's needed for your heart. Your heart is actually abundant in saturated fat, particularly palmitic acid. And it's also responsible, palmitic acid, that is responsible for creating lung surfactant in your lungs. So that is really responsible for helping you take in oxygen and breathing better. So if people have asthma, this is really an important saturated fat to have. It's important for immunity. It's important for retaining omega-3 in your tissues, actually, and helps with your liver and detoxification. So stearic acid is another type of saturated fat that's in red meat, and that helps lower LDL cholesterol as well. So that it's actually a really beneficial and healthy fat to have. However, when it comes to red meat, the quality is really what matters the most, because grass-fed meat has lower saturated fat content compared to feedlot conventional meat. However, it has higher CLA content, which is another type of fat. It has higher omega-3s and lower omega-6 fats, which are pro-inflammatory. So when we're talking about red meat, we have to think about the quality. Conventional red meat is really a problem, because that will contribute to inflammation and could potentially lead down the path to cardiovascular disease. Now, the other component to red meat that we have to consider is the cooking strategy, because there are actually two different approaches, but it depends on the quality of the meat. So for grass-fed organic meat, you kind of want to err to the side of lower heat, because that will preserve a lot of the delicate fats. Because if you actually use high heat, that will increase free radicals, reactive oxygen species, acrylamide, aromatic hydrocarbons, heterocyclic amines, and other nasty carcinogens, which ultimately contribute to inflammation. But conversely, if you're eating conventional feedlot meat, high heat is probably the better thing to do, because it will destroy more of the bacteria, yeast, and other nasty stuff that comes with conventional meat. So that would be my approach to doing it. In general, though, you kind of want to use moisture to cook meat, because this will minimize a lot of these carcinogens. However, I am aware that we grill and use dry heat methods, and that's fine, but just make sure you cook your meat, if it's grass-fed and organic, to medium rare or closer to rare. And then if it's conventional meat, more towards the medium well done side. So those are my tips for you. And saturated fat is really important for your health in general, for structure and function of your cells, which are pretty much, is the foundation of good health. So hopefully that helped you guys out, and let's eat a burger. See you guys.